time to leave the fucking place he was at, drop off the money, take a couple shots in the street. He just shoots in the air and is like, guys, in case it wasn't obvious before, I'm the guy with the gun.
Yeah, the other white people in the town probably saw him and were like, well, we are an open carry state, so I guess it's okay.
I think I saw a black
We're
guy.
all carrying.
It's fine. It's probably Jamal. He just ran out of Jamal over there in the coffee shop reading a book. He looks a little suspicious. So look, let's skip our usual this week, last week, or this week, next week rather segment. Let's just jump right into the goods. Today we want to talk about a movie that we came across. That movie would be Cherry, starring one Tom Holland, and it's directed, of course, by the Russo brothers. I believe written by them as well. I could easily look this up on.
Yes, I believe written and directed by, is it Anthony and Joe Russo?
Yeah, Anthony and Joe Russo. So we're just gonna chop it up about the movie. I can give you do you have the synopsis right there in front of you?
I will have it in about 3 seconds.
I got it. No need.
You got it?
All right. So Cherry talks about
it's not an article. It's a film.
Cherry is about drifts from college dropout to army medic in Iraq, anchored by his true love. This is a really stupid synopsis. I don't know why this is on.
Yeah, no, you're just reading it weird. Listen, Cherry drifts from college dropout to an army medic in Iraq, anchored by his. He drifts from
let's
being
dissect that sentence. Cherry drifts from college. His name isn't Cherry in the movie. I don't understand. Why is that the thing that we're indicating in that sentence?
His name is Cherry.
In the movie?
Yeah, his name is Cherry.
Is it really?
Tom Holland plays
the entire movie. No, he calls him Cherry. He said, "Did you get your cherry pop?" That's the only reference to Cherry I heard that entire movie.
I mean, I think his girlfriend Emily called him Cherry like once or twice, but like his name wasn't a big part of the movie. But anyway, he plays the character Cherry. So yes, Cherry drifts from college dropout.
That makes that entire sentence make much more sense now. Okay, fair enough.
Yes. I'll take it from here. Since you fucked this up. So Cherry drifts from college dropout to army medic in Iraq, anchored by his true love, Emily. But after returning from war with PTSD, his life spirals into drugs and crime as he struggles to find his place in the world. Yeah. Short and sweet. That's a pretty good synopsis of this film, actually. So I'm going to let you go first because I think I may have some more directional thoughts.
Directional thoughts. I don't know what that means, but I'll jump into
Me neither. It just felt right at the moment.
Look, man, watching this movie, man, the cinematography was gorgeous, man. That's one thing that stood out for me from this movie is that it just looked really pretty, for lack of a better term. The story for me was interesting in that it reminded me clearly like of shit like Jarhead and shit like that. With Jake Gyllenhaal, any really movie about war and a young dude going out to war was going to drift back to some of those early like 2000 type movies. Bless you.
Thank you.
And mostly, obviously, it's because of the post 9/11 world that we live in that we've got an abundance of those films to select from. But I would say that this movie, it was kind of aimless, if I'm to be perfectly honest with you. Drift is the most appropriate way, I think, to use in the description for this movie because if you ask me ultimately, like, what was the point of the movie? I could pull out, perhaps it was, that you have to like face your demons. You've got to deal with the shit that's building up inside, because if you don't ever deal with that, then it's going to manifest in really just harsh ways. But that is, from these type of like, war movies that, young kid goes off to war, comes back, is all fucked up because of it. Yeah, that's the typical message we get from those movies. So for one, you'd kind of want something a little bit more from a movie made in 2020 or 2021 than that message. You'd want something a little different, maybe, than that. But then on top of it, they spend precisely 5 minutes on that aspect of it, of the whole sort of like redemptive arc of apparently his name is Cherry. I didn't really realize that. Um, but they spend about 5 minutes on that, on him realizing this shit's fucked up. I gotta do better, yada yada. And then the movie's over, and you're like, well, why did he drift into that? Obviously, you could talk about him, seeing the shit that he saw in war, but on top of that, like, he seemed like he was already fucked up pre-war, and they never really fully explain anything about that, of like why, of like, okay, like what happened to him, like why is he a little strange? He was a little off to begin with. He had a little bit of an anger issue to start the movie. And they never really like explore any of that, and it just felt like it was always just kind of just drifting, and these, like, there were like a few scenes in the movie I can remember being like, okay, this has nothing to do with anything, and it's not material to the movie. Why are we here, and why are we spending this much time in this specific section? I don't know, it was strange when it to watch from that point of view. But yeah, what was your take?
So this movie to me, it felt like a lap dance. So, right. In the beginning, like, you're like, yeah, sure. You're at the gentleman's club. Cherry comes up to you. She's like, hey, you want to go for a dance? I'm like, yeah, fuck it, why not? And then you go, and then the lap dance starts, and you're like, okay, this is interesting. And then like you hit a spot where it's like, it's kind of boring, actually. And this Cherry person can't dance for shit. And then when it's over, you're just like, right. I'm gonna go back to the bar. That's and then Cherry's like, do you want another one? And you're like, nah, I'm good. So and this is what I mean, right? When the film first starts, right, it's as you said, the cinematography for this film was great. This film looks lovely. You know what it reminded me of? Like, just like how it was shot in the cinematography. It really reminded me of, was it Place Beyond the Pines?
That's actually a really good comparison. It actually really did remind me of the Place Beyond the Pines. Yeah, that's really
good. So that was with it had Eva Mendes. It also had not Ryan Gosling, I believe.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling. Yeah. And then damn, what's the dude who's Rocket on in the Marvel films?
Bradley Cooper.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So again, the cinematography I felt very similar to that film. Really wide, beautiful angles. It showed a lot of the scenery. A lot of like aerial shots, slow pans. Just like really like nice, nuanced things that they did with the camera. It's like make the environment that the characters were in as much as part of the film as like the characters themselves. And it just looked really good. I remember telling, my girlfriend at the time, I was like, you can watch this movie on mute. It just looks so good. And she kept commenting on the aesthetic of the film. So, again, Cherry comes on, first few minutes, she's like, wow, this film looks great. But then it's like, I remember at a point about 15 or 20 minutes in, I'm like, all right, let's get to the shit. Let's show me something, right? And nothing happens. It's just like more like dancing around and toying around, like random shit that didn't even really like matter or add like real substance or value to the story itself, right? So you're like, okay, and then you just keep waiting and you keep waiting, and then T-Pain comes on and you keep waiting, and T-Pain didn't come on, but got to follow the story here. So there's a lot of waiting, and I mean, things are happening to the characters in the film, like their relationship is evolving and changing and growing. He goes off to war, he comes back, he's changed. They dabble in drugs. Some other characters are introduced. I remember the guy who had the black car or whatever, like, who was he?
Hold on, what the fuck was that about? Like, I never really, like, is that supposed to like represent like his demons or something? Because it was just like a dude with a fucking big ass face tag. I thought it was like Mike Tyson at first.
Yeah, he just had like a face neck tattoo. He drove a black car and he wore black, and he was just like scary. Like
what? He was supposed to represent his demons? Maybe, I don't know. I don't like what. I like that was like, again, like there was like and this movie is
and even if it was supposed to represent his demons, I feel like they should have not necessarily said it outright, but give us more of why this person is representative of his demons. Right? Give us just a little bit more. Spell it out just a teeny bit more to make it clear, and don't leave me questioning it at the end of the movie. So at the end of the film, right, we get to a point in which he comes to this realization that he no longer wants to be a part of this life. He doesn't want to be a bank robber. He's addicted to drugs. He needs help. And it's the scene where he's in the bank and he's confronted by the young woman. And he's like, I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to scare you. I'm sorry. I'm going to go take the money. We'll go give it to this guy. And I'm essentially going to turn myself in, have one last hit. Right. And then he gets out and he's clean. And like, that's the film. And it's like, what? That's like the quickest ending ever. Right. It's like when you come too soon and you're just like,
but what's crazy,
I'm sorry.
The crazy part about it is it's a fucking 2-hour, 20-minute movie. That's what's insane about it. You had so much time to do this and you didn't do it. Like, and look, I was going to say this to like the very end, but I think it's really warranted now. Look, I hate it. How I Met Your Mother, right? A lot of people hate it. I fucking love it from beginning to end. I thought it was a great show, even the end, which everybody complains about. One of the episodes in the show, they have this thing, right, where it's like they start saying what each other does that annoys the shit out of everybody. Like, oh, you bite your nails, or you always correct people's spelling, or you chew loudly, or some shit like that, right? And then everybody's like, oh, that person really does do that all the time. And then for like the rest of the episode, like you just like notice it every time somebody does the thing. So when you start talking about white privilege in movies, you start noticing it all the time. So people who watch this movie, who watch our podcast, they might be like, God, do you guys talk about white privilege all the time? But dude, holy shit.
It's a real thing. It's like the weather.
Fucking movies. You're just like, wait a minute. It's everywhere. Holy shit. Dude, this dude runs around robbing the same fucking town, like different banks in the same town without a fucking mask. I don't know if he's a COVID denier or not, but he was fucking not wearing a mask the entire time. And the police simply could not fucking find him.
Didn't look too hard.
Utter insanity. Like, he like made fun of it. Like, I just don't want, what use of.
And he would always look directly at the camera too. Like, thanks.
He did everything but write down his fucking address and like.
Where were they? I think it was like they were like Cleveland or something like that, or they were in Ohio. They were like, thanks Ohio PD for like not looking too hard.
Yo, you know what it reminded me of?
Because I'm just having a bad day.
Yeah. You know what it reminded me of, dude? It reminded me of in The Dark Knight where they're like, oh, shouldn't you guys be looking for the Batman? But like they've just got like fucking, who's the Batman? And they've got like random fucking pictures on there, and it's just like somebody throwing like shit into like a trash can. It's like, we're not looking for that nigga. Like that's what it reminded me of. Just like, nobody's looking for this dude because he could not be any more catchable. Like you could not have somebody who's as catchable as this dude. He was even locked in to a place at one point where he was like locked in, and he was just like, dude, let me out. And they're like, all right, fine. Like, he just leaves, and it's nobody finds him. And then to the point, and if you don't believe me about this, his white privilege is so much that he literally had to get himself caught. Right. Like it wasn't like they found him. It wasn't, he literally, and then not only that, but he had time to leave the fucking place he was at, drop off the money. He'd leave the bank after he asked them to ring the fucking alarms, go drop off the money. After that, take a couple shots in the street. He just shoots in the air and is like, guys, in case it wasn't obvious before, I'm the guy with the gun.
Yeah, I'm the gunman, the guy with the gun.
So he shoots it twice.
The other white people in the town probably saw him and were like, well, we are an open carry state, so I guess it's okay. There's a bank robbery going on over there, but it's not him.
Who can say, really? Who can say if he's really the gunman or not? I think I saw a black guy.
We're all carrying.
It's fine. It's probably Jamal. He just ran out of Jamal over there in the coffee shop reading a book. He looks a little suspicious. So he does that, and then he shoots up before they arrive. And it's just like, what? Like, what the fuck? And where is this possible that this could happen? Are they wherever the fuck they are at? Whatever the police department is there is just like, yo, you guys need to be shut down immediately. Even though I know this is a piece of fiction, I assume it's a piece of fiction. I know it was a book. I don't know if the book was based on anything like real life.
And you're also missing one big part. This is after they like dumped that dude's body.
Yo, right? They just straight up fucking just dumped the body, took all this shit off of him, and like that
took his shoes, took his watch, dumped his body.
Broad daylight. That was that.
They were like, people probably saw that happen. They're like, they're just having fun. Young children having a blast.
In the bookstore over there reading the book. I know he was the one from the fucking all those banks. He might also be this.
I thought I saw him in the passenger seat. I know you didn't, lady. No, you didn't, Karen. But it's like, this movie is really just all about this kid who's a little bit troubled, goes off to the army, comes back, he's even more troubled. Him and his girlfriend dabble in drugs. Their life kind of spirals out.
Drugs, dude.
Yeah, they were doing a lot of drugs.
They were all in on the drugs, all the drugs.
Now, what I wonder is, like, this movie spans a pretty good period of time as they go through their downfall, right? How the fuck did they pay the mortgage on that really nice house they lived in?
White privilege, dude.
What the fuck? What was their mortgage monthly? Because they were spending all of their money on like heroin or whatever they were doing. How the fuck could they afford to keep the electricity on, the water running?
Not once was it ever brought up how they were able to not only fuel their drug habit, which was an astounding amount of drugs.
At one point they mentioned that they like were out of money, and he got his last check from the military for like his like disability or whatever. Yeah, dude, how much was the fucking, and then like
how much is the VA cutting that check for, my dude? Jesus Christ.
The government dishes out bread. If you fucking get a hangnail in the military, they will honorably discharge you.
Actually, all things aside, I know we're joking, but I don't think they pay those shit. They don't get jack shit.
I know a few people who are doing well after having been in the military who had like minor injuries, but they're milking the shit. Good for them. The military wastes our money anyway.
If you're out there fucking, if you're look, let's put it this way. If you're the dude fucking out there fighting on the front lines and shit, or even just like if you're one of the dudes that are working, dude, whatever, cut you a check, whatever it is, like it's all good. You know what? Even if it is hangnail, whatever, right? Because you're in some way, shape, or form, you're the person out there with your fucking neck on the line. I don't care if you're in the fucking soup kitchen pouring soup for everybody. I don't give a shit. You're out there doing some work. But if you're a fucking, one of these fucking contractors that just fucking come in, fucking just like murder an entire town, and then you dip out, and then they give you the bag. It's like, come on, what the fuck are we doing, dude?
Yeah, like, those mercenaries.
That's where the money's going. It's not going to the actual soldiers and shit.
It's definitely not going to where it needs to go.
Yeah.
But we can go down that path for a while. So anyway, at the end of this movie, he like goes to jail. He gets out in like 2 years, apparently, because like it didn't look like they'd aged much.
No, he didn't. But it's hard to like. I know they tried to age him towards the end there.
They just gave him a mustache. Let's be real. They just gave him a mustache.
Some frown lines. They were like,
that's it. And they made her look like she'd been doing drugs for a few years, which she had been.
They made her look like she was 12 to start with. They gave her the whole like.
Oh my God.
I don't know what the fuck she was wearing around her neck, but they're like, let's just make you look like you're 12 years old. How about that?
The entire movie, and I know like this is like we're pretty much like ragging on her and the way she like actually just looks as a person, but like the entire movie, I was kind of like, how old is she? In real life, she's like 23.
I felt very uncomfortable watching the movie from that perspective. I was like, I don't know how old she is. I should probably stop watching this movie. It seems like
there was one scene where she got naked, and I'm just ready for Chris Hansen to walk in. Like, guys, why don't you just pause the film for me and have a seat? I had the transcripts here. I'm like, what transcripts, Chris? This is Apple TV Plus. That's how uncomfortable I felt watching certain parts of this movie where she was like topless. I'm like, this ain't right.
Well, yeah. It was a little uncomfortable to watch from that standpoint.
Anyway,
I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna get my final thoughts here are like this movie. It felt like there was so much coming. It felt like it had so much potential. There was a chance for a really good story to happen here. But ultimately, ultimately the film for the most part was flat. There was a little peak at the end, but that happened and ended very quickly, in my opinion, too quickly. And then the movie's just over, and like you're kind of left with this like sense of,
what was the point?
Yeah,
that's the whole feeling that,
I don't get it.
That I was left with is like, what's the point, man? Like, if you take us through all that and you don't actually spend time with like, okay, why does he recover? Why does he choose to recover? Like, you could argue that it's because of her that he decides to get his act together, but it felt like that was a very, like when he was like stabbing himself with the needle and shit, after she had OD'd, you could argue that was like, okay, like his like wake up call. But it really wasn't, because then she came back from rehab and did some more drugs, and he was like, fine,
and then even her parents like begged him, like, dude, like, you're gonna end up killing her, like, just leave. And they still stay together. So like, was that love, or maybe it was like just toxic love?
Dude, I don't know. All I know, man, is that look, PTSD, all that shit's like real, man. And it's real like a motherfucker, man. And for those who don't believe that like is real, and like this kind of thing can happen to people, especially if they do go off to fucking be enlisted and shit, then you're fucking crazy. You're crazy. You're the person who's crazy. But as I was watching this movie, for one, the one thing I could take from it is like, yo, absolutely, like, go fucking seek help, if you're going through shit like that. And if I'm going to take out anything from the movie, that's that. But then also too, man, is sympathy for people, even if they don't go off to war, right? If somebody's addicted to drugs, if somebody's going through some shit like that, like, I feel like we have like a culture here in America, which is just like, throw that person by the fucking wayside, until it's like our family member, or until it's like directly connected to us. That's when we're like, oh my God, it's a thing. This is an opioid epidemic, but I couldn't help but shake the idea of just like, okay, somebody goes off to war, they see a whole bunch of crazy ass shit, and they don't know how to process that, and that's their life, right? And they have to like deal with that, right? The thing that I can't shake though is that that's what happens, for everybody who fucking likes to talk about Detroit, right? For everybody who likes to talk about Chicago, right? In terms of, oh my God, it's just black people killing black people, and they want to change gun laws, but the biggest place is Chicago. For everybody saying that shit, what they fucking don't talk about is how people growing up in certain areas, certain places that have histories of and we could talk about the origins of why that violence might happen, whatever, right? We can talk about that. But for the places that have these type of things, what people don't fucking talk about is the fucking trauma that then causes you, right? And how you process life and how you see life. And they don't have that same sympathy, the same sympathy that you could have for Tom Holland, in the movie Cherry, when he comes back from war and is all fucked up. They don't have that same sympathy for those people, right? That watch their best friends get killed, that watch their some of their family members addicted to drugs. They don't, that sympathy is not there. And they're just like, well, they could have just, decided to be better. And it's like, bitch, you decide to be better, like what excuse do you have, or your family members have who, grow up in these great places. Like, I have friends, I grew up in Columbia, Maryland. I got friends who, became addicted to drugs and did all sorts of crazy shit. And so I could turn around and be like, what's their excuse? They had a cookie cutter life, to everybody on the outside watching in. Maybe it wasn't like that underneath. But the long story short is you can have sympathy, and you could try to connect with that of just like, yo, it's people going through real shit. And it's not just as easy as like, oh, just decide to be better. Or it's like, yo, bro, like if you've seen like everybody you love fucking die, or if you just been in this environment of chaos, through factors that aren't of your own making, it's just like, why don't people have sympathy for that? That's something
Yeah,
that
you
people
know why?
should have
Because like,
sympathy for.
in America, sympathy is, it's optional, right? If you own stock in some pharmaceutical company that makes, Adderall or oxycodone, cotton, or is it,
Yeah,
oxycontin, codeine, whatever these drugs are. I don't know what these fucking drug names are. It's so they get drug names are crazy. By the
yeah.
way,
We got to get like a TikToker in here or something like that to
yeah,
explain what all these fucking
whatever
drugs
whatever
mean.
whatever these drugs are, if I own stocks in them and it's like, oh, well, I'm going to make money, but if this pharmaceutical company does well, so my sympathy goes out the window because those people shouldn't abuse these drugs, right? So it's like drug, sympathy in America is very optional. Healthcare, it's like, well, no, people shouldn't have free healthcare. I have to, I have a job and I go to work every day and my job provides me with mines, and those people should just get jobs. And it's like, no, it shouldn't be like that. But again, it's kind of an optional thing here. We just need to make it something where it's like, it's your responsibility to be sympathetic towards others, not an option.
Yeah, but
But
that's
that's
just
a
the thing.
long
Yeah,
another
this is the
conversation.
thing. I think with us and our freedoms here in America, um, it's a double edged sword, man. It's just like you let people, leave them up to their own devices, and I don't know. I feel like you kind of get this result, right? And obviously America. I don't know, man. America's just a fucking weird ass place, dude.
Yeah,
It's both a it's both a great place, but also it's the worst place.
yeah.
It seems
It
to fit both of those descriptors very well.
it's a place
And
where you're taught to be tolerant of even things that are intolerable.
yeah,
Like,
which is
it
I don't
would,
know. Yeah,
which it's like that doesn't. I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? To tolerate like people who, like fucking QAnon, right? Those people, we have to tolerate them, but like their nonsense that they spew is kind of intolerable.
yeah,
But anyway,
until people start fucking walking into parlors and shooting them up, and then
yeah,
look, I don't know if that guy, I don't know if that guy's a fucking QAnon, follower or not, or what the fuck was going on there. But all I fucking know, man, is that long story short, man, have sympathy for people. Is I think, look, if I can take out anything from this movie, Cherry, it's to just have sympathy for people, who face trauma, and realize that trauma doesn't fucking begin and end at if you go to war. That obviously does cause trauma, but there's other walks of life, other situations in life that certainly can fucking cause trauma. And so yeah, that's if I'm going to extract anything out of this movie, I think that's what I choose to extract out of it. But nonetheless,
yeah.
man, we persist. Let's